Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Dirk. Thank you for joining our live telephone town hall. This is an interactive forum and we would love to hear from you. We'll be taking as many questions from participants as we possibly can live during this event. So if you have a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time. You'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff who'll take down your name and where you're calling from. Then the next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call and able to ask your question directly. Now, if you're streaming the event on our website, simply type your name and question below the streaming player. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can this evening. And now, here is United Cooperative Services General Manager and CEO, Cameron Smallwood.
Thank you, Dirk. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Cameron Smallwood. Thank you for joining us today. As a lot of you know, United engages its members in many ways, including through community meetings, its annual Membership Appreciation Day, which is tomorrow, by the way, and I'll discuss that some more in a bit. But we also engage our members through our magazine, Texas Co-op Power, social media, and regular daily interactions, just to bring up a few things. And today we're leveraging this telephone town hall platform to visit with you. During our time today, I'll provide an update on a number of topics, so thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Cameron. Now, as I just mentioned at the start of this call, this is an interactive forum, and we definitely would love to hear from you. So we're going to be taking as many questions from participants on the phone as well as online as we possibly can live on this event. Again, if you have a question, simply press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time. You'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff who will take down your name and where you're calling from. And then the next time you hear your name, you're going to be live on the call and able to ask your question directly. Also, if you're streaming the event online, you can simply type your name and question right below the streaming player. We certainly are going to try our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can this evening. But if we're not able to address your question today, please email your question to townhall@ucs.net. Again, that email address is townhall@ucs.net. So another final reminder, if you have any questions, please press *3 on your telephone keypad or simply type your question right below the streaming player. And Cameron, I'll hand it back to you to get into the meat and potatoes of this meeting.
Dirk, thank you very much, and appreciate all of you joining our call today. Hopefully it'll be informative to you, and we'll give you some detail, and please feel free to share the detail amongst your communities. That's what we're all about, is trying to communicate about your cooperative today. I want to start with just talking about your cooperative. I know many of you on the call probably already know this, but I'm just going to give you a reminder that United is a not-for-profit electric distribution cooperative. And so what does that mean? What does nonprofit mean? It means any money that we make in a year actually gets put into account for you and given back to you at some point in the future. And that's what makes us different than an investor-owned company or other types of companies out there, is anything that we do make actually goes back to our members. And so we don't have a desire to make a whole bunch of extra money, because ultimately that doesn't make sense in our business model. Our goal is to serve you as close to at cost as possible with just a little extra to ensure that our bankers are all happy, and then we give it back to you at some point in the future when we can. So it's a really great business model. It works great to keep costs as low as possible, and I've been enjoying my basically whole career working in this industry for the electric distribution cooperative business, and you should be proud to be members and owners of that business. Our mission is simple. We're after exceptional service and value, and that's what we strive for every day at your cooperative. For those of you that are on the call, I have some slides that I'm talking from, but I'm going to be talking in a way that you don't have to see the slides. But for those of you that are on the internet watching the call, you'll have a little bit of information there as well that maybe some on the listening don't have, but I'll try to be descriptive as I go through. At your cooperative, we're a decently large cooperative, probably about the top 30 in the nation of almost 900, and so we're a relatively large business. We're the 6th largest in Texas. There's a lot of large co-ops in the state of Texas. There's 75,000 member owners and growing every day, with over 100,000 meter locations across our territory. We serve all parts of 14 different counties in Texas, and we're very proud to do that. Your cooperative sizes is pretty large. We're nearing $1 billion in assets, and so that's a unique thing for an electric cooperative to say. So we're pretty large, but that allows us to do some things that others can't do because we do have scale. We have 221 employees and growing a little bit there as we expand our internet and some of the other services we provide in our communities. But we don't have a lot of employees compared to all the services and things that we do for you, so we're pretty efficient. We enjoy being able to say that. We do have 8 offices right now. I'm going to talk more specifically about that at a later point in the presentation to give you an update as sort of where we are on our facilities plan when it comes to our office locations to serve you. We serve 3,500 square miles. We have over 11,000 miles of electric lines that we serve you with. The last thing I'll bring up is member dividends. So I mentioned a bit ago that we've are a non-for-profit electric cooperative, which means we give money back when we don't need it any longer of your past margins. And we've returned almost $85 million of margins back to our members since 2000. So that's a very significant amount of money. We have a chart on the screen that shows history since 2013, so basically the last 10 years of retirement. And you'll see from 2013 through 2020, we actually increased our retirement to you each year. In about 2020, that number was about $5 million that we returned to our members. For those of you that see the screen, you see a blue bar on top of that. Back in 2018, Brazos Electric for the first time started returning margins back to us, and we just passed those along to you. And so 2020 was a really big year for returning member dividends to you. We returned almost $10 million to you, and part of that was from your cooperative, and part of it was from our ownership in Brazos Electric. For those of you that have been paying close attention to what we write and such, since Winter Storm Uri occurred, Brazos Electric went through a bankruptcy. It was a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, so a reorganization, and that has been completed for some time now, for about a year, getting close to a year. But during that 2021-2022 years, because of that bankruptcy and because of the cost of dealing with the bankruptcy, we chose to not return member dividends in those years because we really didn't know what things were going to look like at the end of the bankruptcy. The good news is all that worked out relatively well at the end, and we're able to return back to giving you member dividends. And so the first week of October, checks are going to be sent to you. If your amount retired is over $20, you'll actually get a check. If it's less than $20, you'll actually get a credit on your bill. And so while it's not $5 million that we retired back in 2020, it is $2 million, and we hope that number will increase as we go forward. But I will say with the extreme growth that we've had in the electric system and deploying the internet system, we have to be a little more careful about our retirements on member dividends right now because of the cash outlays that we have for your business. We're going to talk about three general topics today as we go forward: rates, power cost, and ERCOT market. We're going to talk about United facilities, so the office locations that we serve you from, and then the status of the internet. And I see some of the questions already coming in about when are you going to get internet, so we'll talk a little bit about that more in a bit. I'm going to start with rates, and we've had this chart in every town hall meeting and annual meeting for almost a decade, sort of showing where your dollar goes as it comes to United. So every dollar you pay for United is sort of split. About 20% of that today comes to your actual co-op. The other 80% of that actually pays power supply charges. So basically for the substation transmission and for the generation of the power supply. So only 20% of that dollar stays here local at your co-op. The rest of it is sent on to others. And so that's an important point for you to remember and as we go forward. You're about to receive a Texas Co-op Power magazine in the mail. Your monthly magazine will hit the mailbox here in about a day or two. And the chart that's showing right now is our September 2023 rate watch. And the good news about this rate watch, we always publish every month. For those of you that don't look at the magazine, we publish where we stand compared to the average Encore REP market and other utilities around the country. We show the Texas-New Mexico REP average, so if you're in Glen Rose or areas like that aren't on our service, those are those costs there. But if you'll see, our cost in September, 14.1 cents per kilowatt hour, and this is based on a member that uses 2,000 kilowatt hours. Well, guess what? It's been that number for a long time. Our rates have been stable. It hasn't gone up, it hasn't gone down. It's been very stable. The market has not been stable, and I'm going to show you some data on that here shortly. But we're almost a whole penny below the Encore REP average when we took this snapshot in September. So the good news is, while the rates are a little bit higher than you want right now, we're stable. And the REP market, if you didn't have us, you would be paying more on average for your energy than you're paying us right now. And so why is that the case? If you've been paying attention to what we've put out to you over the last 9 months, you'll know that we signed a new power supply agreement with Constellation Energy. As a result of the Brazos bankruptcy, Brazos no longer provides our energy. And so your board voted to go out and look for basically a fixed price contract with a counterparty that works within the ERCOT system, and we chose Constellation, and they've been a really good partner to work with so far. I will say it definitely mitigates the financial risk of a Winter Storm Uri event, and we hope to never have one of those again, but if we do, the arrangement that we have right now will protect you and protect your cooperative. It does provide rate stability, as the ERCOT rates have been going up and down with the REPs. We have not been going up and down. We've been pretty stable, which means you don't have to worry about it. We're taking care of that through Constellation's agreement. The second thing is, while rates are higher in our Encore REP average right now, we're lower than that, and so we see that as an affordability issue for you, and so we have a more affordable option currently than the market provides you. So it also gives us time to prepare for the future, and so the contract that we have with Constellation basically expires at the end of 2025, and so we've actually invested in our first power supply person, and we have a person on staff now that's looking at what is going to happen beyond that point. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a little bit as far as your view as what we should do going forward. Just, I guess, talk about the ERCOT situation a little bit. We've got a lot of challenges, and they've shown up this summer. I don't know if you've noticed how many conservation notices that have been put out to the market recently. It's been pretty impressive, to say the least. But we're at a point, Texas continues to grow, and the growth in our state is getting to the point where we don't have enough fossil fuel generation to actually cover it, which means we're going to have to rely on solar and wind in order to actually meet our daily needs in ERCOT, especially in the warmest and coldest days of the year. Well, that leads to wholesale energy price volatility, and I'll show you a few charts here in a little bit. It's a really big challenge for our market right now, the volatility. And the good news, our agreement is insulated you from that, but it has been very volatile, and that has led to the retail price volatility in the REP market. But our strategy has been to try to keep that from you and insulate you from that, and it's actually worked very well over the last few months as ERCOT volatility has been significant. On the next chart that I have, I'll show you the fuel mix of ERCOT on one of the warm days this summer. And those of you that can't see the data, I'm going to explain it to you a little bit. But ultimately, our load in ERCOT this summer is about 86 gigawatts. If you take all of the natural gas, coal, and nuclear generation, so those are your thermal generation plants that you can somewhat rely on, you're not having to rely on wind or solar, that totals 89 gigawatts. And so that requires every single thing to be on, and there's never a case where everything's on. And so we're really at a point in ERCOT where the maximum load that we have on the system is greater than the thermal generation that we have. And that's a really precarious situation to be in, because now we're basically required to depend on solar and wind to give capacity into the market in order to keep the lights on in Texas, and that's a difficult situation to be in. And I'll give you an example. On line 2 there, you'll see wind. On this warm day in August, the wind was blowing not a whole lot, so about 5.2 gigawatts was available, If you look to the right, you'll see the maximum capacity of wind in ERCOT is almost 40 gigawatts. So 5 out of 40 gigawatts was actually blowing on this August day and a really warm day. And so it's really hard to depend on a resource that can go from 30 or 40 down to 5, depending on what's happening in the weather. So that's a big challenge for us going forward, and it does create volatility in the market. On September 6th, it was the first time that we've entered energy emergency alerts at the level 2 since Winter Storm Uri. And not everybody knows that this happened. It was talked about a little bit in the media, but as far as the general public goes, not a lot of people understand that this was happening. But we were within about 10 minutes of having to do rotating outages on the evening of September 6th, and that was happening as the sun was going down. So about 7:30 in the evening, we got precariously close to having to do rotating outages. It would have been a short period had we had to do it, probably an hour and a half at most, but the reality is it was really close to not having enough generation to meet the load at that time. So that's a really big challenge, and I'll show you the next graph, what happened to price in the market at the same time. And if you don't see the graph, there's 2 lines on it. There's one that's orange and one that's white. The white line is our cost. And you'll see our cost is very close to the cost of the market most of the day until about noon. And at noon, the ERCOT wholesale market started to react to the shortages that were occurring in the market. And ultimately, by about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the ERCOT market price was at $5 a kilowatt hour, which is the maximum. And it hovered around, it dropped for a little bit around 6 o'clock, but then right back up at about 7 o'clock, it was back at over $5 a kilowatt hour again, which is the maximum price that it can be at. So you would say, well, that happened just because of the situation that day in the energy emergency alert that occurred. We have the next chart, and it shows you the last 45 days in ERCOT, the real-time pricing, and you'll see 23 of the 45 last days, prices went above $1,000 a megawatt hour or above $1 a kilowatt hour. And folks, that's our new reality that we're dealing with in the ERCOT market right now. And so that's a challenge for us as we go forward. So we have to manage that as we head forward in managing your power supply. That's our responsibility now. Brazos doesn't do that for us any longer. And we've been talking about this at our community meetings. We had a town hall meeting in earlier this year, and we asked a similar question. But we're going to ask a question of you here shortly. But we really have 2 paths right now. Path 1 being that we continue to basically manage your power supply for you, figure out the best way to do it to keep costs as low as possible. And we've got really several different ways to do that. Right now we're in a fixed price contract with Constellation, as I've mentioned. We are evaluating switching more to a portfolio model where we use multiple providers and basically try to draw down price out of that opportunity, maybe using some of the low market prices at different times of the year, et cetera, and still managing the risk of that. But there is another option. And that option is for us to just be out of the power supply business completely and opt into retail competition. And ultimately, that would allow you to pick your own REP, but you would be responsible for doing that going forward, and you would have to make those decisions. And then you would have to be responsible for whatever those decisions are that you make as you go forward. I want to tell you a few comments about it before we do the polling question. We did hire a firm a little while back to study this with us, and they were experts in REPs and markets. In our market, I mentioned to you earlier, we have about 75,000 members. Some of our members have more than 1 meter, but basically we have a market of about 75,000. And the REPs that are in Texas right now, they operate in markets of millions. And so in the Encore market, you have millions and millions of folks that have to select an REP. In the Houston market, there are millions and millions of folks that have to select an REP there. And so out of the REPs that are present in those markets, they have a lot of opportunity to gain customers. In our market of 75,000, we're seriously concerned about if we were to opt into competition, that if there were only 2 or 3 REPs that would come in, then would you really have competition if only a handful came into our market? The experts that we've talked to say that that's a very high likelihood that we would only have a small group of REPs that would want to play in our market. So that's a really big concern we have. Another thing for you to know before we ask you the question here in a second is if we do opt into competition, we can't go backwards. We actually have to stick with it. And so it's about a 2-year process. So if we do that and go forward with it, ultimately we have to do it at that point. And if we don't have any success with REPs, then we're going to have to figure out what to do because we can't go backwards. We can't actually get out of the market once we've gotten into the market. And so that's something that you need to be aware of as we go forward. But ultimately, it's your co-op. It's not my co-op. It's not the staff's co-op. It's not the board's co-op per se. It's your co-ops and the members. And so we have a polling question that we want to get your input on. And Dirk is going to take it right now from me and explain how that's going to work.
Thank you very much, Cameron. And as Cameron was just mentioning, yes, the technology we're using today for this live telephone town hall allows us to collect important feedback from you. And we're going to do that by way of a poll question. And you can register your vote for the following question through your telephone keypad. Okay, so please use your telephone keypad or vote right below the video player on the website. So here's the question. How do you wish your power supply to be managed in the future? If you want United to continue to manage your power supply needs, please press 1. If you want United to opt in to retail competition so you can select your energy provider, please press 2. So again, we're looking for your feedback on this question. It's very important. How do you wish your power supply to be managed in the future? Press 1 if you want United to continue to manage your power supply needs. Press 2 if you want United to opt in to retail competition so you can select your energy provider. I see a number of people are registering their vote. Thank you very much for participating in this poll question. And during this live telephone town hall, we will also have question and answer. So if you have a question in your mind, please press star 3 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. Again, please press star 3 so you can ask your question live on this call of Cameron. Also, if you're checking this call out online and following along there, you can type your name and question right there online. So, Cameron, I'll give it back to you, sir.
Dirk, thank you very much. So I'll give you the poll results. A few folks are still voting right now. Right as of this very minute, 450 of you have voted on the call. 419 have voted for option 1, being you want United to continue to manage your power supply. And 33 at this point in time have voted for option 2, that you want United to opt into retail competition. So that's 93% for option 1 and 7% for option 2. And I'll tell you that is consistent and actually a little stronger message of us managing the power supply than we've seen over the last year. We've been asking this very specific question to our members. We were trending a little bit closer to 90% earlier in the year, and what we've seen as we continue to talk about this issue with our members is that the number of folks wanting us to manage the power supply continues to go up and not down. And so I think that's it's been clear, it's been consistent, and we're consistently scoring 93, 94% and above of members that want us to continue to manage that for them and not deal with us opting into retail competition. So I appreciate your feedback on that. We're listening to you, and while it might be easier for us just to wash our hands of that responsibility, we understand our members don't want us to do that. You want us to manage this, and that's what we're going to do going forward, because you continue to tell us the same thing. Over 9 and 10 of you want us to do that, so we're going to continue to do that for you. We do have, even though we're cheaper than the REP market right now, that will probably change because the market is in continual change. It continually goes up and down. There's times of year that we're cheaper, and there's times of year we're a tad bit more expensive, but we're pretty close all the time. But with that said, it's still 14 cents a kilowatt hour, and we understand that rate is a lot higher than what we're used to, and we understand that that's a really big challenge for a lot of you financially to pay those bills. Even though we're a little cheaper than everybody, it doesn't mean that it's easy to pay, and we get that. And so we have a lot of different tools to help our members use less energy. And I've got those listed on the screen, but a really key one is an energy audit. If you haven't done that with us, we perform free energy audits for our members to help you figure out how to waste less energy, how to basically use less and thus lower your bill. We've got tons of other programs. Just reach out to us at any time and ask us, and we would be glad to cover those programs with you. We also know a lot of folks are on hard times right now, and we work with a ton of local nonprofits, and we fund those folks to help our members in need. Texas Neighborhood Services is one of the key ones that we work with. They get some federal money, and they also get some money from us. And just so everyone is aware, that money from us comes from Operation Roundup, which is something most of our members participate in by rounding up your bill each month, and that helps to go back and help other members in our community. The second thing that we have available to you, and unfortunately only a couple hundred of our members have signed up for this, our data says probably 20% of our members qualify for the Brazos Hardship Fund, but way less than 1% of you are using it. And we hate to see that, because we fought for this in the Brazos bankruptcy pretty significantly, but about a penny of your bill each month is being collected and basically sent to bondholders to pay for our cost of Winter Storm Uri. And if you fall under this category, basically under 200% of the federal poverty line, which is about $60,000 for a family of four, if you fall under that, you automatically qualify to get that penny knocked off your bill, and that would probably average $200 to $300 a year for many of our members as savings. And so if you haven't filled that out, we sure hope you would take some time to go to our website and do that. I'm going to shift to a different topic, and that's really service in our communities to you, and that's through our local offices. And I want to talk to you a little bit about our plan there. We actually had a plan. We were talking about 4 years ago about the next step in our plan, and our next step in our plan was to reconstruct our Cleburne office facility and also install a new office facility in the Mansfield area. And we had been talking about that, and we had just started doing the design on those two projects when Winter Storm Uri happened. And because of Winter Storm Uri and the unknown financial characteristics of what was going to happen, your board and staff put those projects on hold. So we really didn't know what was going to happen financially with everything, and we didn't feel like it was prudent to continue those projects while we didn't have the answers to what was going to happen with the Brazos bankruptcy. So that obviously has gone forward and worked through, and we're able to move forward, and it didn't affect us too seriously on the financial side, and so we're able to move forward with those two facilities. But I want to show you on this map, you'll see that we have facilities in Godley and Joshua right now. Both of those offices were obtained. They weren't built new. They were Wells Fargo bank buildings that Wells Fargo had left those communities, and we bought both of those buildings to house people because our employee group is growing while we wait to get the Cleburne project and Mansfield project underway. The board has approved the Mansfield project, and it is under construction, and I'll show you a picture of that shortly. The Cleburne project has not started yet, and I'll talk more about that here shortly. The Mansfield project, there's a picture of it. This picture was taken last week, so you'll see lots of construction still going on. We're right south of Mansfield. For those of you that know that area, just off of 917 on Klein Boulevard, we have, back in the mid-90s, we bought 60 acres out there knowing one day we were going to need it. And it was a guess, but we were right. And we do need it, and we finally pulled the trigger on that office location. Out of that 60 acres that we bought back then, we only needed about 10 for our office facility. And so the good news is The other 50 will be sold, and that cost will pay for the majority, if not all, of that office location. So that's good news for our members. We're going to be able to open this service facility and support the members in Mansfield much better than we are today, and it's not going to cost very much at all to do it. So really pleased that's happened. And our tentative open date for that office is February 1st. You'll notice it has a drive-through there. It also has a community room. Most of our offices do have a community room that our local community can use for different things. And so very pleased to be able to provide that office location for you to transact business with your cooperative going forward. So be on the lookout for that, opening on February 1st. The next project, and we have a picture of it on the screen right now, has not been approved yet. The city of Cleburne is actually reviewing our permit right now, and we're making, getting all the final details from the city and the things they want to see us change. But this will be at the Cleburne office location that we currently have. And we did quite a bit of study whether we needed to stay at that location or go to a different location. And we felt like it was the best use of your capital and our capital at the cooperative to use the existing site that we already own. That does mean that we've got to tear down that front facility if we do choose to go forward with this project. The board will be considering this probably in their October or November board meeting to determine whether or not to move forward with the project. We're getting all the costs together right now. For that, I will say it's more expensive than we want to spend on the building. It's not something we're happy with. The costs have gone up in commercial construction significantly in the past few years, and those of you that are building houses or businesses know that firsthand. And it's not the great timing, but the reality is we're out of space, and we need to serve you. If we can't do exceptional service without having the space to do it for our employees. So. We are working on this right now, and I will tell you the Godley and the Joshua locations are planned to be sold once this building's complete, if approved, to help offset the cost of the project itself. So that's what we're looking at. We'll give you more data in the future as we know more on that, but ultimately, if things move forward as we think they will, we would be breaking ground probably around January or February of next year on that project. In the meantime, anybody that uses that facility regularly up front, there won't be one there. And so you'll have to go to the Joshua location or another location to serve your needs during that time. I'm going to shift to the last topic, and that's internet. I know looking at some of the questions coming in, there are a lot of questions about internet. The only one I'm not going to be able to answer, and there's a number of you that have asked, is when am I going to get the internet at my specific address? And you've given us your address. And I'm not going to obviously be able to answer that question in this session, but I'll talk to that issue. But overall, the project has gone really well. We're about to hit 21,000 subscribers. And, folks, that's in about 37 months from connecting our first subscriber. I know I get comments from time to time that y'all are going so slow. Why is it taking you so long, et cetera? Well, folks, there's a number of co-ops doing this across the country. I'm not aware of anybody that's done it as fast as we've done it. And I know that doesn't make those of you that don't have the internet right now from us happy, but we are moving at lightning speed as far as building these assets. And so we've installed over 6,000 miles of fiber in under 4 years, just over 3 years, and that's unheard of. And we are putting the time and the effort, and I know there's a number of you that are frustrated right now because you still don't have it. It's not because we don't want to give it to you. It just takes time to build the system out, and we're doing everything we can to keep that pace on a very quick pace. Now, one of the things that we did tell you, and you voted on in the very beginning, and we've made a slight shift in the project, which is going to be to your benefit. In the beginning, we had our financial study showed that fiber to the home for the entire membership probably wasn't going to happen, and we were going to have to deploy wireless services for some of our more rural areas in Erath, Bosque, and Palotina County. And about a year into the project, we started doing our testing on the wireless technologies and towers, And as we did that testing, we turned up a number of members on the wireless service, and they're actually still on it today. But it's really not to the level of service that the fiber is, and it's never going to be. And we recognize that, and we recognize that the trees and the topography and much of that territory is going to leave people out. And we realize we can't do that. And so we've been studying this for some time, and here a few board meetings ago, a few months back, your board voted to work hard to bring fiber to every location that wants it in our territory. Now, what does that mean? Number one, it changes the schedule a little bit in the most rural areas. So we would have been able to get towers up more quickly than we can get fiber up. It just is what it is. It's a much quicker deployment to put up wireless. But the problem is we were only going to be able to serve about 30% of those members in that area after we studied it. And then we knew that wasn't going to be a solution for the 60% of you that we said, okay, we're done, and then you don't have service still. Wasn't going to be a solution that you would be appreciative of. And so we've shifted that. In order to do that, we have to get more revenue into our business model. It's that simple. And so how can we do that? Number one, you all voted for us to do this. And I know some of you listening probably weren't members at the time when we had the vote, but we had a vote. 92% of our members voted for us to move forward with this project. Well, our take rate right now is about 50%, and so about 1 out of every 2 houses or businesses we passed use the service. And so, number one, we need more folks to use the service. You voted on it, we've done it, and now it's time for you to use the service. And I'll guarantee you will be happy with it if you switch to this. I drive around our territory, and I see a lot of members still on wireless. Folks, our service is so much better than wireless service. I mean, there is zero comparison between the two. Please look at signing up for the service because we have fiber in a lot of places right now. Second thing I'll say, we are looking at supporting some non-members in areas that are very close to our assets, that are high-density areas. So let's say we go through an area and we serve our members, and there's a subdivision right next to our fiber line because we don't serve electric on the other side of the road. Well, those folks are reaching out to us and saying, the fiber is right there. Why can't you connect us? And we are looking at doing that now in order to get more revenue into our business model to drive fiber into those most rural areas that we have. And so we are looking at that. We're being very careful about that. But we believe that's another way to get more dollars into our financial model to get that fiber everywhere in our system. The last thing we're doing is we're working on grant funding right now. Without getting into great detail, the state of Texas is working with the federal government, and we'll have some access to apply for grants. And we hope to be able to land some of those in order to get that fiber in the most rural areas. The last thing I'd like to tell you about it, with the pulling out of the wireless assets out of the plan and putting fiber everywhere, we're estimating an additional 2 years to build the fiber to everybody that wants it. And so we said 5 years originally. We're a little over 3 years in, and it's going to take us 2 more years to put fiber where we were going to put towers. It's just, unfortunately, it takes time to build the fiber plant, and it is going to lengthen our schedule for those most rural members. But I will say you're going to be really, really happy with the service once it gets there. And, folks, nobody else is going to bring you fiber. Not in those most rural areas for sure, and it's actually most of our territory. We don't have any fiber competition. We're the only fiber person in town. But ultimately, we've made this commitment to you, and we're going to keep doing that. At our website, if you haven't signed up already, we'd ask that you do that. So that is on your screen right now, how to get to that. Also on the website, you can see where our active areas are, where our under construction areas are, and where we have areas where there's not enough member interest. And so if we pass a subdivision that we serve electric right now, we are waiting for our members to sign up in there. And if only 10% of our members in that subdivision want us, we don't build it. And we won't build it until a certain number of folks sign up. And so that is tracked online, by the way. And so if you're in one of those subdivisions, if you go to our website, if you haven't signed up, please do so we'll know that you're wanting to do that, and we'll be able to basically get over that hump and get that project moved into construction for you. And so we're really excited about the project. I will tell you this, to close on the internet topic, we have started quarterly surveying our members that have internet, and the score on the ACSI has been increasing. So that's the American Customer Satisfaction Index, and the last score was a 92. And folks, there's not an internet provider out there that scores a 92, and our members are scoring us at that level, which tells you that they're very, very happy with the service that they're getting for the price that they're paying. So we're really pleased to be able to offer that, and I know many of you are frustrated because you don't have it yet. Just hold tight. We're working as quickly as we can to get it to you. The last thing I'll bring up is our Member Appreciation Day and annual meeting. So tomorrow, come to your local office. Mansfield's not ready yet, so don't go to the Mansfield office, but every open office, please come 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're serving lunch. You can enter for door prizes. We'll have a little goodie bag for you to take away, and we really look forward to seeing you tomorrow at any of our offices, and come get a free meal and enjoy it, and enjoy the camaraderie with your other members and with the employees of your cooperative. Also, the virtual annual meeting. We used to do the annual meeting in Glen Rose, and we've shifted virtual a number of years back. The virtual annual meeting, if you want to participate in that, will be on October 13th at 4 p.m., and we'll be putting that on Facebook and out on social media and talking about that as well. So you're welcome to attend that event as well virtually by logging in on a computer or listening on the telephone. So now we're going to move into a question and answer session, and Dirk, you want to take that?
Absolutely, sir. And another reminder, if you have a question you'd like to ask, it's very simple to get in the question queue. Please press *3 on your telephone keypad. Again, *3 if you have a question you want to ask Cameron. Our first question comes from Jim in Cleburne. Jim, you are live on the call. Go ahead with your question, sir.
Okay, we own Mainstay Farm Park, and we use a lot of electricity. We use three-phase, Ferris wheel, that kind of stuff, roller coasters. And we're being approached by providers. They want to install on our farm solar. We've got like a 30,000 square foot barn. They see dollar signs in their eyes, I'm sure. They want to install solar. Is this something we should consider or not consider?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we get questions like that from members all the time. I think it's good for everybody to look at it and see if it fits your scenario. But what I'll tell you is most of the time, even though our rate's a little bit higher right now, it's still going to cost you more money when you consider the investment of the solar system and what it offsets in your energy cost. But we actually have experts on staff to help you do that. And so if y'all are strongly considering, or any member on this call is strongly considering it, I would encourage you to reach out to the co-op. And if you're interested, we can actually tell you, here's roughly the cost it's going to cost you to do it, and here's the payback period, and here's how our system works, when you do install solar, and we can give you all those answers. And you can hear it from your co-op and not from somebody who's just trying to sell you something. And I say that in tongue-in-cheek at the very end because we're actually here within probably the next 3 or 4 months going to start selling solar too. A lot of folks in our territory are, I'll just say it, being taken advantage of by some of the solar vendors, and we really don't like what we're seeing. And we've decided that it's wise for us to get into that business to protect our members going forward. And so while we're not ready to do that widespread yet, we're gearing up for it. And then we'll be able to, provide you true data and show you whether or not it makes sense for you to do it. But if you choose to do it, we'll be there to do it at an affordable way when it comes to actually doing the installation. So, yeah, just reach out to us, Jim, and anybody else that has those questions, we can help you with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next we've got Gordon from Stephenville joining us. Gordon, go ahead with your question now, please.
Yes, I was just wondering how many
Gordon, you dropped out on us. Let's try that one more time. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Okay. The deal on the solar, how much do you guys pay or solar back to the customer?
Gordon, that's a good question. And so if you send energy back to the co-op, we basically pay you what we would pay the power supplier for it. And so ultimately you get paid what we would have paid our power supplier. And so it's basically equal to that number. And a lot of our members do send us back energy, and they get paid for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we've got David in Stephenville. David, welcome to the call. What is your question?
Yes, sir.
Hello, David.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you hear me?
You're live. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yeah. He spoke about option 1 versus option 2 as far as REP. Are there any other electric co-ops out there that have chosen to go the REP route? And if so, are there any outcomes to evaluate?
David, that's a really good question. There is one in Texas that has done it. It's a cooperative in South Texas. The reason they did it, without getting into great detail, had to do with service territory issues that they had, and so they made a choice to do it for a different reason. But it's a good case study, because once they did it, once you opt into competition, the REPs have to register and come into your area. And typically that comes in 2 forms. It comes in a form of more business REPs, so the guys that want to serve your business customers, so to speak. And then there's the group of residential REPs that come in and want to serve just the regular homes and businesses. In their case, they had several REPs that registered and came in to serve business accounts. They didn't have any REPs that registered to serve their residential accounts. So that cooperative ended up actually having to create an REP to serve the residential accounts.
Gotcha.
But,
Gotcha.
on my comments earlier, a big concern that we had is our market's not really big enough to incent a number of REPs to come in. That was sort of played out in their area, and sort of, it sort of backs up what the expert that we hired told us, is our market's probably just not big enough to incent enough REPs to come in to be competitive.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
All right, as a quick reminder, if you've got a question you'd like to ask, please press *3 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. Or if you're following along online, you can type your name and question right below the streaming player. Matter of fact, Cameron, we've got a question that was submitted online. This one comes from Dan, and he asks, why doesn't UCS build its own electrical generation plant or plants?
That is a really good question too. So Dan, let's talk through that a little bit. We could. We'd have to get financing to do it, but in theory, we could do that based on how things work today. But the cost of doing such is tremendous. And I'll just give you an example. A combined cycle plant today to build something like that costs about $1.3 billion. As I was telling you a bit ago, our balance sheet is about $800 million. So for us to jump into something like that would be very significant, and I'm not sure who would actually loan us the money to do it. But even if we bought and built one plant and operated that going forward, ultimately we would have the risk of owning and operating that plant, and it's just one asset, and everything that we would rely on is all in that one asset. Our load is actually larger than a combined cycle plant, and so that wouldn't do it on its own. We would have to do some other purchases anyway. So when it all comes down to it, we know that our best case scenario is contracting with other parties that have generation and doing it across multiple parties or multiple generation assets to ensure that we cover risk. And so from our standpoint, we really can't build one plant and expect that to cover our risk in a way that makes financial sense. So it's a really good question. Really, we have to operate in the market that we live in, and the best way to do it is contractually going forward. So, but it's a really good question.
Back to the phone for our next question. We've got Casey from Fort Worth on the line. Casey, welcome to the call. What's your question?
Hi, I'm relatively new to the co-op, me and my family. We joined last year, about a year and a half ago. So I've read the Securitization Act from the Winter Storm Uri. And I guess my main concern is, that was a pretty significant amount of money that got put into a bond or however it was paid off. And if we are paying that amount now monthly, I guess my question is, how are we avoiding this type of problem in the future? Because, this is 20 to 30 years that we're going to be paying this bond off. So what if this happens again?
Casey, you're absolutely right. And I'll say a few things about it. Just to be clear, it's a almost 28-year bond, 27.75 is what it is. We're almost a year into it, so we got 27 years left to pay. Yes, we are paying it monthly, all of us. I'm a member just like you are, and it's about a penny a kilowatt hour a month that we're paying for it. Our bond payment's about $29 million that we have to pay each year until this is paid off, and so that is a significant amount of money. And you're right, we can't do that again. We had relied on the decisions that were being made at Brazos, and it's not completely a Brazos situation. We did have a market failure during Winter Storm Uri, and there were a lot of companies that had to pay a lot of big checks. Brazos wasn't the only one. Brazos, though, did have some challenges a few others didn't have, because a number of our plants did not operate that Brazos owns and operates on our behalf. And that basically made us buy energy on the market at $9 a kilowatt hour instead of the normal, 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour that we would pay. And that was what accumulated such a huge bill. And that's why Brazos went into bankruptcy, because they couldn't pay the bill, basically, to ERCOT. Okay. So how do we keep from getting there again? The contract that we have today actually says the energy provider that's providing us is responsible to meet the capacity that we have. And so your cooperative has a contract that says, regardless of Winter Storm Uri peaks or valleys or whatever's happening with load on our system, they have to cover it. And so it's their risk, not our risk. That's the contract that we have today that's good through the end of 25.
Is that a new contract? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. It started in March of this year, and so we've been on that since March, and it will go through the end of 25. And the question is, what do we do after that? And we'll be evaluating a mixture of contracts like that amongst some other contracts that we can get in the market. But the bottom line is we're not going to take an open position to the market going forward in our strategy. Everything will be hedged, is what it's called. And which means it'll be protected from an extreme risk like Winter Storm Uri. With Brazos, we basically expected them to do that on our behalf, and there was a failure there that we weren't in control of. Well, we're in control now, and obviously we've learned from what they didn't do well in Winter Storm Uri, which they made some mistakes, and so we understand what happened there, and we know how to hedge against those risks going forward in the market that we're in.
Okay, so one more question, I'm sorry. So you mentioned this incident on September 6th. Let's say that happens, to be another major failure like in January of 21. You're saying if there was a huge bill to be incurred at that point, it would never come back to the members at this point because of the new contract.
It's Constellation's risk at this point in time. So they have to ensure that they have the generation and the portfolio to meet our demand. And if they don't, it's going to be a bill they have to pay, not a bill that we have to pay.
I see. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Thank you for those questions. Good questions.
All right. Next up, we're joined by Valerie in Cleburne. Valerie, welcome to the call. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, I'm glad actually that she was before me because she had time to actually read that about the 28-year thing. So my question is every big business has to have insurance for their machinery, for everything that they own. They have to, because it's not paid off because of how much they owe on it. You know, that's just like us owning our car. Well, it's under the car dealership until we pay it off. So with that being said, and even after that, an owner that's paid for his equipment, if it breaks down, he's going to want insurance. So if it breaks down, he's still got money flow coming in. So my question is why the freeze that damaged his equipment or Brazos' equipment, whatever it is, why that affects us, because he could have claimed that on the insurance, not filed bankruptcy, and then it been a consequence for all of us.
Valerie, that's a really good question. Insurance works where insurance is available. There is not insurance available for a power plant like this that would have covered that kind of risk. And so there are other, hedge products that Brazos could have purchased for certain things, some which they had in place and some which they didn't. Natural gas was a really big issue, and, without getting super technical about what happened, gas was not flowing in Texas like it needed to be. And because gas didn't flow, that caused a lot of the issues that Brazos dealt with. Ultimately, there were some things that we felt like could have been done better, which is, we were definitely part of the bankruptcy proceedings to tell our story on that. But ultimately, Brazos is a company that we own, even though we don't control it. And so, at the end of the day, we had to do our part to pay our part of that mess. Now, we did get a good discount. Our original bill was around $560 million. We ended up doing a bond for about $440 million. So we got a significant discount through our process of the bankruptcy court. But at the same token, we still had to borrow that money, and we're still having to pay that back to the bondholders. So I understand your point in insurance, and insurance works, to some level. But I'll give you another example. We have $800 million of electric assets, or let's say 600 of electric assets, 200 of internet assets. We can't buy insurance for that. And so when a storm comes through and knocks down 100 poles, there's not an insurance policy that we can buy that pays for those to be replaced. We actually have to pay for that to be replaced out of the cash that we have. And so insurance exists for some things, but it doesn't exist for other things. And that falls in that latter category. There's not really insurance on this type of a failure on the power plant side.
Right, which I get the gas prices. I mean, everybody knows that they've been ridiculous. I mean, that's not under any kind of debate. But like what you were saying with as far as like, let's say, if the internet poles go down, this and that. But let's say at the time that the internet poles go down and only half of the co-op members, owner, whatever you would consider everybody that under co-op, let's say half of them don't believe in it, don't want it, don't have nothing to do with it, but those poles go down and they are still the how should I say that, like the bottom line of what they pay on their bill would still go to repairing those lines that are down. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I understand completely, Valerie. On the internet infrastructure, we're not installing very many poles. We're actually using the electric assets to carry that. And so when a pole goes down, it's typically one that's providing electric service. We have very few poles that actually only provide internet. So the situation that you brought up actually doesn't happen.
Yeah, I was just using that as like an example. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah. I mean, no, I really like. I would still like to know if Brazos didn't own their equipment, so then it would technically be under whatever company, like let's say my tractor, Kubota. Until we got it paid off, Kubota owns that tractor until we get it paid off. So let's say their machines were Kubota. So if they were Kubota and he didn't own them, then how is it that Kubota wasn't forcing him to have insurance? You get what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. It just doesn't work that way in these large asset classes. A Kubota tractor you can maybe insure, but a power plant, a $1 billion power plant doesn't have insurance against breakage, if you will. It just doesn't work that way.
Okay, so basically they would take a loss? if his equipment goes down, like because it wasn't paid for?
Right. That's right, and basically there's reserves for that kind of thing. Things break all the time in large power plants, and the companies that own those plants have reserves built, to pay for breakages and stoppages and things like that. It just works a little bit differently in this world than what you're used to.
So, Cameron, I've got an interesting online question that I'd like to pose next. This one comes from Robert, who says there's been some talk on Texas connecting to some external grids to help in times of excessive energy use or needs. Does United Co-op see this happening? And if it does, how would that affect co-ops overall, namely pricing or costs?
That's a good question. So if you look at Texas, we're not really interconnected with the rest of the world. And the reason for that is the state of Texas doesn't want the federal government basically telling it what to do when it comes to energy. And if Texas was interconnected with the rest of the U.S., it would subject it to FERC jurisdiction, and Texas doesn't want to do that. And so that's why ERCOT isn't connected to the rest of the country in a significant way. There are a few tie points between Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana, and a few tie points actually with Mexico, with the Mexican government down in South Texas, but it's not significant, and the way it's done, it basically gets around the definitions that put Texas under FERC control. And so the whole reason we're not interconnected is to stay out of government control of our electric grid. Now, there's pluses and minuses that, many pluses, but there is a minus that we are interconnected with grids, or we could be interconnected with grids close to us and maybe share capacity in some of those tight conditions. But what happens most of the time when Texas is going through a difficult scenario, so are the grids next to us. And so in Winter Storm Uri, that's a perfect example. The two neighboring grids during that time are going through very severe stress too. One of them was rotating outages, one of them wasn't. One of them had really high prices, but no rotating outages. Had Texas been interconnected with those regions, we probably would have forced the other one into rotating outages. So that example right there on itself, us being isolated actually was a better thing for the United States as a whole as opposed to not. But it's a good question. I don't think you're going to, under the current administration in Texas, you're not going to see us ever interconnect with other grids. That would have to change. It would take some really significant change in our legislature and our governor to even consider that. And I don't see that happening, at least for the next 20 or 30 years. Something would have to change significantly.
So, Cameron, I just looked up at the clock, and it looks like we have time for just one more question. And we're going back to the phone. We're going to meet Veronica now. Veronica, welcome to the call. What is your question? Hello, Veronica.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. You're live. Go ahead with your question, please.
Hello. Yes. All I wanted to know is our electricity going to start going down more because we're a retired couple, fixed income, and it has gone up like 2 times more than it was when we first got it.
That's a fair question, Veronica, and I'm sorry that it's happening to you. It's happening to everybody in the country really right now. We're not unique here at United. It's happening in the state and also across the United States right now, and actually across the world. Energy is more expensive right now, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But ultimately, you're not the only one seeing it. It's something that's happening everywhere. We're doing everything we can to bring that cost down over time. Right now, your cost has been stable. Since the contract that we signed in March, your cost has pretty much been the same since. And that's what our goal is going forward, is to not go up but to go down. But there are pressures that we have every day that we have to manage around, and unfortunately those cost pressures tend to want to push rates up as opposed to down. Our hope is as we go forward is that we can find some savings after the Constellation contract expires, and we probably shift to using multiple providers, that we can find, a penny or two of savings there to help all of our members as we go forward. But I can't guarantee that to you. I don't know what natural gas is going to do in the future. I used to think I knew that, and experiences told me to stop guessing. It's just not something I can do, and the cost of electricity from a baseline is basically based on the cost of natural gas right now, and that's probably not going to change anytime in the near future. I'm hopeful that after 25 you're going to see some declines, but I think stability is really where we're at right now. So that 14 cents is probably where we're going to stay for some time. And I think what's most important is for our members to look how to use less energy as we go forward, because the 14 cents is probably here to stay for a little while.
Okay, is there a place that we can call to help us to use less energy? Because I have a pool, and I breed dogs. They have an air conditioner. So how do I do that?
Sure. Just call into the office and set up an energy audit with us, and we'll come out and look at your specific situation and give you ideas on how to use less.
Okay. That's all, because I went from Encore to y'all because they used to have y'all. Left Encore because they're ridiculous, and I love y'all. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what happened? Because, during Snowmageddon, y'all were cheaper than anybody else,
Yes.
I mean, my pool stayed on, my electricity stayed on. But then all of a sudden, last year, the last 6 months has just been, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Yeah, and realize August that we just went through was like one of the hottest on record, which means your air conditioner pretty much ran nonstop, and that's true of everybody's. I had one of the highest bills I've had ever at the co-op in August, and it's not because our rate went up; it's because my usage was higher than it has ever been, and so people think our rate's changing. It's actually been stable for a number of months now since March, and it hasn't really changed, but the cost you're paying has gone up significantly because we just had a really hot summer. And so you're getting relief right now because you're using less energy as we go into the fall. And so hopefully we'll have a mild winter and everybody will get some financial relief from that. So thank you for your question.
So Cameron, thank you very much for what you and your staff have put on today with a lot of information for us, as well as answering questions. As we round out this call, could I call on you for some closing thoughts, sir?
Thank you, everyone, for attending today. We appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow at our offices from 11 to 2. Have a great evening. God bless you.
All right, as a final reminder, if we weren't able to get to your question this evening, you can leave us a voicemail right at the end of this event by simply staying on the line, or you can also go ahead and send us an email. The address to send to, townhall@ucs.net. We appreciate the opportunity to speak directly with you about some of these things going on at your cooperative. Again, thanks for participating. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and have a great night.